Peace and power. This your Panther 48. This your big brother Sight calling from Texas, Dallas, Texas. I'm sitting here with my other two brothers of the Panther 48. My brother Robert War Williams, calling out of San Diego, California. Brother Robert War is the present chairman of the San Diego chapter of the Black Panther Party, and brother Robert War is also one of the original, not founding members, but one of the original members of the original New Black Panther Party, calling out of Dallas. I mean, started from Dallas, Texas, and that birthed the a lot of the Panther movement, not an organization. When I say movement, I'm talking about the growth of the Panther element. Period. Brother War, peace and power.
Black power, all power to people, folks.
And I have another one of my good brothers from another mother, Brother E. Brother E is our Minister of Information Emeritus. Again, another one of those day one original, not founding members, but original members of the New Black Panther Party that was the original New Black Panther Party that came out of Dallas, Texas under Aaron Michaels and David Foreman. That's where Brother E and myself cut our teeth in the revolutionary game. That's where we built our relationships. That's where we built our relationship with Brother War and Brother E. Peace and power.
Howdy.
Okay,
That's
today
all I got.
we're coming back to a discussion that we've been building on. We started out with power. Today will be Blueprint Part 3. We've dropped Blueprint Part 1. Blueprint Part 2 is in the process of being edited. Will be dropped today. So I think y'all need to see it. And I put it for the listening audience, I put it in a folder together. So there's a folder called the Blueprint, and it will have Blueprint 1 and Blueprint 2 in it. It needs to be watched in order for these series to make sense. Today we're digging on Blueprint Part 3, and we're going to start where we left off and continue answering some of those questions that we started off with last week. This video, to give you a little history and background, we was talking about the fact that black people in this country do not have power. People of African descent do not have power, and people of African descent need to build power. One of our brothers, another former member of the New Black Panther Party Dallas chapter, Field Marshal Darkside, he called us out on that. He called me personally, he called Brother War personally, and he said, "Okay, I heard a problem. Y'all been telling me the problem for years. I get it. I accept that that's the problem. What's the solution? Because all I'm hearing is the problem. I need some solutions because I'm trying to solve this problem, and it's legitimate. And so we took it upon ourselves to try to give some solutions and build. Because one of the things Brother Dark was saying is it's not necessarily just for me, but what about those who was not even old enough to be a part of the organization when we was going over these things. They have never heard the solution. So I would like y'all to actually start building on how we can solve this thing. And one of the major things that we found when we went into certain works like uh, Black Power by Stokely Carmichael and Charles Hamilton, we went into works like Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson, uh, Blueprint for Black Power by Amos N. Wilson. Also, a book that the late great Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad said that should be essentially a field manual for the new Black Panther Party, and that every part of leadership should have it. And then we even went into other books dealing with power. This is power versus force, the hidden determinants of human behavior, and y'all all know the 48 laws of power. So we kind of building a little bit on these concepts and these ideas, and I'm gonna come up with some ideas out of the Uhuru Shule as well. I'm gonna come with some of those ideas. So we decided to work on this and try to give some solutions. So today we're starting off where we left off, and I'm gonna go back one question that we left off at. Uh, and that question is, and again, y'all need to watch the other two videos. That question, the last question that we left off last week with was, what are some missing institutions that we need to establish? Is that where we left off at, War? Matter of
Yeah.
fact, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back one. I'm gonna go back one. We answered this last week, but I'm gonna go back. What are some examples of a black institution? I'm gonna go back to that because I think that will kind of help us get started on the day's show. What are some examples of a black institution? That's the last question that we answered on Blueprint Part 2. And we want to start today's show off with that.
Well, again, and I just want to reiterate what I said on the last show because I really do feel like when we talk about the current example, the current situation here in Black America, the best example is the Nation of Islam. And I want to jump into why I say that. The reason why I say that is because they have developed a total foundation in terms of of providing everything that if you are within their group, you're being able to be catered to. They have the religious, they have an economic program, they got economic program, an educational program. They got a martial arts and a self defense program, and they have a family structured program. All of these components are part of their institution in terms of how they operate. Now, is it necessarily the answer for every Black person? No, but it is an example to me of an actual Black institution that is intact, and I'm gonna stick to that. It is not that I agree to everything because I'm not a member of the Nation of Islam, but when I look at that, I see the components of something that does work on
Well,
on their scale.
and that's where your question, your answer don't fit the question. You said you see the components. Components are not an institution. And because they don't serve the Black community, they work with the community, the Black community, provide services, someplace to shop, da da da, an example, da 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 da. But as long as it's missing that primary component, it's not a It's not truly a Black institution. It's a community for it's an institution for parts of the community, but it is not itself a Black, because they are building and creating maintaining a community of Black folk, not even Black folk, because there are white folks, there are other folks that are a part of the nation, but that the nation serves building that Muslim community. It's not serving Black folk in that sense. It's helping Black folks, and as you said, it's a great example because it does have the components. But I can't say it's a Black institution simply because it does not say. If it was a Black institution, then it would serve all Black folk. There would be no delineation between if you're a Muslim. Matter of fact, Farrakhan, not too long I was watching the video and he was talking to sisters saying that if you want protection, if you want to be respected, da da da, come here. In other words, join the nation. Outside of that, you get, you respect and all of that type of thing. But there's no extra effort. There's no, and that makes sense. I mean, you close ranks and you build from within. That's intelligent. So, like I said, as an example, absolutely. But I can't qualify it because it only teaches our history back so far. It doesn't embrace the totality of who and what we are. And therefore, it doesn't serve the completeness of who it is we are.
I want to add to that before y'all get it, because I can see y'all gonna get into a discussion about this. I agree with War on this, Ian. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I think you're looking for the totality, the completeness, and you're not accepting that something is being built from ashes. Here you dealing with people who is coming out of a state where they've been completely ran over by another group of people. And so people are trying to, like we are doing, trying to find solutions to that problem. And so with the Nation of Islam, the founders of the nation's solution was, okay, let's build. I mean, if you look at it, they actually tried to solve this problem because we're talking about this. They say, let's build what it is we need. We'll call it, we want to build a nation, not an organization, but a nation. We're going to call it the Nation of Islam because most black people didn't even know what Islam was. I didn't even hear the name until I heard of Malcolm X. I didn't even hear the word Islam growing up in my life. So black people are religious. Let's utilize when we look at books like 48 Laws of Power, 33 Strategies of War. They tell us this. They show us this. They call it transmogration, I believe, when in the 48 Laws of Power, when he talked about Christmas and how Christmas came about. Christmas was actually the winter solstice, and it was a celebration that Europeans had. Where I don't want to get into the details and go all the way off the rail, but I got to give a little background. Christmas was originally the celebration of the winter solstice. During the time of the winter solstice, the nights are longer. You're dealing with the winter. All of the vegetation has died. All animals have went into hibernation. It's snowing. Europeans thought that the sun had died, and with the sun dying, the snow, they thought that the sky was falling. Sounds crazy, but they thought the sky was falling. And they thought that the punishment, food, animals in hibernation, vegetation not growing, they literally thought that this was God punishing them. So these people start they walk, imagine them in frantic. They're running through the forest, running through the wilderness. Oh my God, God is killing us. And then they run into the only green thing that's still in the forest. That pine tree, that evergreen tree. When they see it, they think this tree is God. They think it's God. So what they do, they kill God. They cut the tree down with an axe, with the work of the worksman hand, with the workman axe. If we look at Jeremiah chapter 10, and they drag the tree back to the house and they nail it to the ground, and they decorate the tree in silver and gold, and they put sacrifices at the tree's feet. Remember, it's God. So they put their sacrifices at the tree's feet, and they start praising the tree. And someone believed that the tree told them how to bring the sun back to life. And what they did was they set fires in the trees outside, candles all around the house, candles all in the tree to try to feed heat back to the sun. Sound familiar? You know, we put lights all around the house around Christmas time, lights all around the Christmas tree, so forth and so on. So anyway, in order to get a new group of people to accept this celebration, they just changed it and said it was Jesus' birthday. Even though, according to scripture, Jesus wasn't born nowhere near Christmas, but they say it's Jesus' birthday. They tie the tree, the presents, and all that to Jesus. And so you take something that you don't know and you tie it to something that you do know in order for people to digest it better. So we go to the nation Islam. Black people are real religious. They believe God has to be on their side for them to succeed and win. So Christianity had already failed, and it had been used as a tool to misdirect and mislead black people. So they took Islam, which was close to Christianity, which would allow me to still use God, Jesus, Moses, and all these people that people already think they know about. And they took it, and if you look at it, they created those institutions that we need inside of the nation, as far as medical, as far as military, the fruit of Islam, as far as an educational system. They created the necessary institutions in the nation. And they're saying that, okay, all other black people, y'all are out in the wilderness. We have created the institution to lead us to freedom here. Come in the house. The
God
nation
damn
of
it.
Islam is the house. Come in here with me. So we can't,
Come on.
because black people black people have not made a decision to all go into the nation. We cannot say that the nation is not an institution, because it is. It is a black institution that was created to try to solve this problem. It's just that all black people don't want to become Muslims, and they don't want to stop eating pork. The average nigga, excuse my language, but I mean that. The average nigga will always use this example. He'll say, shoot, I like the Muslim, boy, they clean cut, but my problem is I can't leave white women and pig feet alone. The average nigga say this. I heard a brother, Christian dude. I heard a dude say this the other day about he was studying Islam for a moment, but his problem was he just couldn't leave the pork alone. So he became a Christian pastor because he couldn't leave the pork alone. To me, that was a weak excuse. But they created an institution. Marcus Garvey created an institution to try to solve black people's problems. It's just that all black people didn't want to go into the UNIA. Noble Drew Ali created an institution to try to solve black people's problem. The Moorish Science Temple the Moorish Science Temple. Even Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale built on an idea that they thought would solve black people's problem. Let's move from religion to revolution and politics. But all black people wasn't attracted to the guns and the bravado. So we can't say that the nation is not an institution, because the nation is checking is for the most part checking all the boxes that's required for a real institution and a real solution to black people's problem. The only thing is, the thing that I think we're not looking at that keeps everybody from going into the nation is what has happened to us psychologically in America. But if we look at the solution that Amos M. Wilson gives us in Blueprint for Black Power, if we look at the solution that Dr. Anderson gives us in Powernomics, if we look at those solutions, even the solution that Stokely Carmichael and Charles Hamilton gives us in Black Power, then we can define the Nation of Islam as a solution. And Black Power by Stokely Carmichael and Charles Hamilton, one of the main things that they build on and they argue about and they fight for, this book, they're saying that racism is an institution. And you will need to create an institution to defeat an institution. Look at the nation. The nation's concept was the white man is the devil. This is me directly combating the institutional racism that they have taught and trained and developed and conditioned on our people. We need to stop looking at them as omniscient and we need to start seeing them as the devil. And we are God. And these are the things that we have to do in order to free ourselves from the limiting ideas and concepts that they've given us. Even in Amos M. Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power, he says that one of the major things that has to happen is not just the economics, the politics, the education, the health, not just those things. He says in this book that those things have to be addressed, but they can't be addressed outside of the psychology, meaning the thought process. And that's one of the things that the nation did address. They told you, you are God. The black man is God, and the white man is the devil. So now we have turned that psychology that they've given us on its head. They told us we were slaves and we was less than. We're going to change the narrative. We are God and you are the devil. And the narrative was changed. So they addressed every single thing. It's just that I think that we're making a mistake of thinking that all black people got to go. And one of the things you have to accept and understand, and I think we've learned in our long careers, revolutionaries, that everybody ain't going to go. Some people got to be dropped off. There has to be a drawing of the line in the sand, and we can't keep racing that line and backing it up, trying to include all the black people. With that, I yield.
Well, you asked a definite question, an absolute. Examples or question. You posed a situation, a request to identify black institutions. I'm not saying it's not an institution, but where it's the Nation of Islam versus the universal Negro, da 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 da. Looking at just the name alone tells you what the primary focus is of that organization. And the primary focus with the Nation of Islam is Islam. Yes, because black folks are very religious, we're going to promote the religion. Absolutely. And as important and as significant as those concepts are, it's proven out by the fact that Islam is a huge part of the reason, the total reason, but it's absolutely a part of the reason, the foundational reason that the nation does not dig into African history and tie us to Africa the way Garvey tied us to Africa, is because to do so by the nation would undermine the concept of Islam being a saving force. It would expose Islam as nothing more than Christianity in Arabic, the same thing. So as long as that limitation for me, as long as that limitation is there, it's not black. It's not for us. I'm not saying we can't use it. I'm not saying we shouldn't be a part of it. I'm saying that it is not a black. It's an institution, and it's got components that we absolutely should follow. It's a great example. Wonderful. If I had to give an example of the most successful, of the best, blueprints and that are actually functioning, the nation would be one of them. But the fact of the matter is, my issue is the definition of black. If you want to talk about just black folks here in this country, okay, we could have that conversation. That's probably true. But for me, when I hear a black institution, I'm looking all the way back. I'm looking at what we've done. I'm looking at the examples that the nation sprung from. Because remember, they're nothing but a spinoff of the nation of Garvey. Yep. So if that emphasis was on Garvey, if Garvey was, and I don't know where Garvey is right now, the organization, But then at its point in time, that was a functional institution because it not only did the things that the nation was doing, it tied us back to the root, the most important part, because they understood that we are only going to function with this institution to the degree that we understand who it is we are. And if our foundation is an American identity, something born out of the bullshit of the Ma'afa and all of those things, if it grows out of that, if our understanding is that we were slaves and we have to overcome, then that's what we're going to work toward. When for me, in my mind, we're not slaves. We don't have to overcome. We simply have to be who it is we are. But the nation can't show us that, because to do so would mess up the whole Islam game. And it is a game. Like I said, to explore Islam truly, to get into our history truly, is to see another opposition, to see another oppression. So to stop there, for me, is a limitation that keeps it from embracing the totality of the people, of who we are as an idea.
And don't get me wrong, I agree with you. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying that us as intellectuals, we got to look deeper. And that's why I'm not a member of the nation. I built with those brothers for years, but I couldn't accept the terms like Islam, Muslim, because I know the history. Hell, even Europeans, the Portuguese got introduced to African slavery from Arabs. So I know this, and me knowing this, it's hard for me being African centered to accept that title on me. But let's put that aside and let's just intellectually dig into it. They didn't take Islam because even back then in Elijah Muhammad's and Malcolm's day, a lot of the Arabs were saying they're not real Muslims. That same thing is happening in prison today. When the Nation of Islam level brothers, Nation of Islam, Moorish Science Temple, 5%ers, those are the brothers that fought for Islam to be recognized in Texas prisons as a real religion. And so when the institution of prison was forced to accept these people's religion, they put a cap on it. We only accept Sunni Muslims. You got to be a Sunni Muslim. Can't be Shiite. Can't be Nation Islam. You got to be Sunni. Everything else is considered a security threat group. So my point I'm getting at is, like I said, the nation did something that was genius. They knew that black people were religious. They went and got a religion. They couldn't. Elijah Muhammad, as wise as he was, couldn't see that we would be living in an age where people would actually be able to understand Islam. He created an entire what's the word I'm looking for? He created an entire cosmology about the Nation of Islam. That black people was originally from the holy city of Mecca. You're the Afro-Asiatic, descended from the tribe of Shapak. He gave black people an entire cosmology. Islam was the culture, according to him, the culture that black people practice. And Islam didn't mean an Arabic religion. It means I'm self, Lord, and master. So they took this religion and he built it in a way to try to approach and solve the problems of black people. So that's what I'm talking about it from. I'm talking about it from what they tried to do with it. It's exactly the same thing that Huey tried to do with Eurocentric socialism. Huey and Bobby tried to give Eurocentric socialism and communism as a solution to black people. They tried to create an institution that was primarily based on those socialist ideas that was coming from Eurocentric thinkers to try to solve the problem of black people. And that's where I'm coming from when I say that an example of a black institution in this country, and as you just said, one of the most successful ones is the Nation of Islam, without a doubt. And they built on Garvey, but they was able to go a little bit further than Garvey, and they was able to also have greater continuity and longevity than Garvey was able to have. And even Garvey didn't use the right name. He just used the name that he could use based on his level of knowledge and where our people was at the time. Because you can guarantee if he created that organization today, it would not be called the United Negro Improvement Association. So we see our people trying to pull themselves out of the mud, and we building on the platforms that we have and we understood at the time, I believe. And yes, the Nation of Islam had the backs of the Moorish Science Temple and the UNIA to stand on when they started building this platform.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said in terms of looking at the nation as a stepping stone. It's got the components. To me, it's not a black institution. It's an institution, and there are components that we have to take. because just like they went further than Garvey in some ways, they also didn't go as far as Garvey in some ways. And that's the part, the history part, the culture part, and giving it back. So I'm not saying, forget the NOI. I ain't fucking with them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are components to make a black institution. Leave Islam and all of that out of it. Take all of the nation stuff. Throw some of that Garvey Pan-African stuff in there. That's a black institution. Put that together. That's what we got. So for me to, I can't say this is a black institution, not because it's not an institution, but it's not with the blackness that I'm at. But again, it's absolutely a part of the plan. It's a part of the puzzle that has to be there. Because yes, they have some, just on economics. That's what always got me about them, was the economic and the discipline, the economics and the discipline, which, are tied to the same. But I would say that those are components. Those are areas that we have to extract that information and apply it to whatever it is we're doing. Whatever we call ourselves, whatever it is, there are components within that organization and others that should be duplicated. The economic programs and self-defense and not just because it's the nation, but because the party, QNM, has some of the same shit. They have things that we have to pick apart and take and da-da-da-da-da. So I don't think you said successful, because ain't none of them been successful, but because it's always a work in progress, just like we ain't been successful. But there are examples, components that we have to institute into what it is we're doing. And I think that's one of the reasons that this is difficult for people, because if it was as simple as saying, oh, we need to do, and I'm not saying y'all are saying this, but if it was, let's just do what the nation is doing. Okay, that would be pretty much a wrapped up, ready to go package. No real thought involved at all. But to actually make something, create something that addresses us, it's going to take researching the nation and the party and Huey and the Moore and all of these different groups to see where they're successful, where they're not so successful, and piecing those parts together, taking Blueprint for Black Power and these other books and piecing that all together. And that, for me, is the problem. We can have all of hell, we can take black-owned TV stations or black CEOs and whatnot, the HBCUs. We can take all of them, and there are components that we need to take, but none of them are black institutions. Because for me, to be that black institution, and I'm digging on history and commit, then you're serving the totality of who it is we are into each individual, so-called individual person that comes through the doors. So yeah, for me, there's not a single institution, but there are absolutely all the components for our liberation are there. All of them are there. They don't come from someplace else. We've already expressed them. We've already done them. We just haven't matched them up in the right order to get shit moving. So yeah, I don't think we're really in disagreement all that much. It's more semantic and whatnot, defining. If you want a black institution and your information is limited to the history of us here in this on this land, then yeah, Nation of Islam, top notch, hands down, period. But if you extend that back to Luxor and all the other institutions of Kemet and across the continent, no, it's not enough. Because I remember, those organizations, those institutions that had us functioning where we needed to be functioning. The mysteries back in the day, all of that had us functioning where we needed to be functioning. That's my backdrop. I mean, we can water it down, like I said. If you're limited here, then cool.
But here's the problem, and this is where you and I always kind of divert, and I'm not going to take too long on this before I move to the next question. Here's the problem. I always say that you have to, whenever an intelligent strategist is making a strategy, he definitely has to understand where he's come from. He's definitely have to understand that. But he has to also recognize where he's at, the situation he's currently in, and he has to actually, there's no other way to do it. He has to move from where he's at. He has to have a determined goal of where he's trying to go. But there is no way for me to say, okay, I want to get out to Rancho Camacho, wherever it was stay at, in San Diego, California. And not recognize that I am in Dallas, Texas right now. in order to properly guide my steps and to set my GPS and to send me to exactly where I need to go, I need to recognize where I'm at, the situation I'm currently in. If I pretend like I'm in ancient Kemet in Africa somewhere and I'm trying to get to where war is at, I'm not gonna make it because I'm not identifying where I'm at. And here's the thing, I was gonna say this for later, but here's the thing that I think is important. Now, don't get me wrong, please don't misunderstand me. I've quoted this a million times. I know for 100% fact that culture is extremely important. Culture is extremely important for any true people to be liberated, to have power, to be self determining, and to move as a sovereign group. Culture is necessary. It's absolutely necessary. Here's the thing, though.
But
Hold on. Don't go jump in there yet, E. Hold on. Here's the thing. That pregnant pause was strategically placed there for a reason to give everybody a chance to think. Here's the thing. If I know it with my limited education, if E knows it, then you can guarantee that our open enemy knows it. And as everything else, our open enemy has weaponized even culture against us. Let me show you something. Let me give you a definition. I love this book. I love this book so much because this is Who Are We? I just bought me a copy. I'm always quoting it. I read it so much and I took so many notes from it when I was on hiatus that I didn't even think I needed to have me another copy of it. But because I reference it so much and I ordered this Power Numbers last week, I went on and decided to order this too. This is for anybody. This is a white man too. And I think it needs to be read with Science of Self by Supreme Understanding. And I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna tell y'all why, and then I'm gonna make my point. Hold on. Let me grab some not Science of Self. I didn't I didn't mean Science of Self when I said that, but that's a good one. This book here, Science of Self, but also this book right here. Supreme get in there with this one, When the World Was Black. This is a bad boy. Because as we know, and I'm going to be real, while he gives some nice stuff in here, but he's white. He's European. He's you, Dr. Kirk Herod. So he doesn't always, you know what they do. They don't always tell the truth. So he doesn't tell the whole truth in this book. So I don't want to give y'all that and make y'all think this man finna give y'all the whole truth, but he gives enough of the story, and especially if you know enough of this history, you can get into the things that you need to get into. So one of the things that I think that I love about this book is he tells the history and the story. Let me tell y'all the name of the book. It's called Who Are We? A Chronicle of the Ideas That Shaped Our World. And in this book, he tells two stories. He tells the evolutionary development of human beings through development of cultures and civilization, but he also tells the evolutionary development of human ideals, the different ideals and concepts that have shaped the world and turned the world into the world that we know today. So it's a beautiful story to understand what happened on this planet, especially for people that are trying to change reality, that are trying to make a change. And so one of the things that he talks about in the book, he tells you the story, and then at the end of each chapter, he tell you history. He give you one of history's lessons, and so history teaches you certain lessons. When you, Malcolm them said that history is best equipped to reward our research. He gets into that idea deeply in this book. So one of the things he does is he gives you a definition for culture and civilization, and he says culture refers to the behaviors, beliefs, and adaptive mechanisms that a group of people sharing a common experience have constructed to cope with their environment. Culture, unlike civilization, is learned and taught and is unique to a group of people. Agriculture and cities are characteristics of civilization. Religious rituals are examples of culture. A group of people's unique culture is crucial and irreplaceable for their prosperity. The disruption of a group's culture impedes the collective accomplishments of the group and prevents the individuals in that group from achieving their potential. It is no coincidence that very high rates of alcoholism, unemployment, and failure to find a place in society are found in two groups whose culture was nearly destroyed by Europeans: African Americans and Native Americans. So he's to me he's on point. He's on point. That's chapter 2. To me he's on point, and I read that for a reason because I want to point something out. I want to point something out to y'all. And I know my brothers, they so intelligent, they caught it when I read it. He said that first he told you where culture comes from. And he told you that culture comes from culture is the behaviors, the beliefs, the adaptive mechanisms that a group of people sharing a common experience have constructed to cope with their environment. And that's what culture is. And naturally, before groups start invading other groups' areas and interrupting their culture, interrupting their development, arresting their development before it started happening, culture was a natural thing that flourished from people who was in a common area, having a common experience, sharing resources. This is what E is constantly talking about. And this is why black people find it very, very hard to unite, because culture is the glue that that selected individuals is what collects them together and keeps them united. And when you rip up people's culture from them, they lose that fabric. But here's the more devious, dynamic thing that I don't think we ever think about when it comes to culture. He said culture was necessary and irreplaceable. Irreplaceable means that nothing else can take its place. No amount of money, no amount of status, nothing else can take culture's place. He said that a group of people is unique, and every group has a unique meaning, particularly for them. A group of people's unique culture is crucial and irreplaceable for their prosperity. So E is right. E's not lying on none of the stuff E's saying. E's not lying. This guy is even supporting what E is saying. It's crucial and irreplaceable for their prosperity. He said the disruption of a group's culture impedes the collective accomplishment of the group and prevents the individuals in that group from achieving their potential. Wow. E, I don't know where you figured this out at, but you're right. E goes on and on every week for years saying the exact same thing. If we ain't talking about culture, we ain't talking about nothing. We ain't, and everybody think E is crazy, but this dude just said E is on point. Here's the thing though. Once an enemy understands that culture is the very thing that's going to assist you in your prosperity, and that enemy doesn't want you to prosper, then that enemy is going to intentionally attack your culture. Not only attack it, we've been saying this for years, that they took our culture away from us, and not only did they take the culture, but they took our desire, our taste for it away. They did that. But I think there's something more, a deeper machination if we look into it. Not only did they do that, but they flipped our culture around. We did a show and we said there's no such thing as a black culture. E, I disagree. There is a black culture. If we're looking at the definition of culture, look what it says. And I know I'm going a long route. I'm going to land this plane. Culture refers to the behaviors, beliefs, and adaptive mechanisms that a group of people sharing a common experience have constructed in order to cope with their environment. What environment did black people in this country needed to cope with? What kind of adaptive mechanism did we need to make? We created a new culture. E calls it a bastard culture, a mutated culture. And this mutated culture is the very thing that keeps us from doing what it is we need to do. And I tend to think that it was intentionally bastardized the way it was. Because when you study this and you understand that people by nature who have a common experience create these adaptive mechanisms in order to survive that experience, then you create the experience to push the people in the direction you want them to go, to live the culture that you need them to live, so they can be ineffective, unpowerful, and completely disrupted. And that's what the real issue is, and this is what E is steady arguing about. But we have to define the path to lead us out of that trap that we find ourselves in. We're in a trap that keeps swallowing its own tail. We're in a trap. You're saying we need culture. E, nobody knows what the hell you're saying when you say that. The very people you're trying to liberate, that you're trying to give that mental freedom to, none of them know what the hell you mean when you say that. I'm done, E.
When we say a shared experience, again, I think the limitations of, not your limitations, but the limitations of the masses. When we say a shared experience, if in my mind, our history started on the shores of this country, that means everybody involved, all these black folks that got here, came here, slave ships, Jim Crow, all of that, we share a common experience. Hands down, absolutely, completely concur. If, however, your understanding extends beyond these shores, beyond this time frame, extends to a time before this so-called culture, so-called ever existed, we begin to see that our experience is bigger than that. We begin to see that our experience spans the experience of human life on this planet. So our common experience is not this measly 200, 400, whatever, 500 years here. Our experience is that plus 200, 300,000, whatever number of years back into the past. That's our experience. Not just this, not just the nigger shit, not just slavery and Jim Crow, not just this, all of it. And until we take into account all of it as a part of all of it, we can't understand any of it. It's like looking at your fingers and expecting to understand how your hand works and your arm works. You can't possibly until you realize, oh, this finger is connected to this hand, which is connected to these other fingers, and so this is how we work. Because the reality of it is, black folk in America, Africans in the Caribbean, whether they're Haiti, whether it's the DR, Cuba, any of those places, South America, on the continent, anywhere else, I can make a case. If we went through the experiences of African people in London, African people in Brazil, African folks in Australia, African folks, period. What do we call ourselves? Niggas, bitches, black, whatever. That experience that we've had in London, in Australia, in the Caribbean, and all of these places is a shared experience. It is a collective experience. It looks a little bit different each place you go. The language is different. The religion may be different or called different. It may have, the cultural expressions may be different, but the experience was the same. And that experience, this collective, once again, collective experience of all these people tell you who this enemy is, because he looked one way in London, looked a different way in Brazil, looked a different way in the Breakers Islands, looked a different way in the continental U.S., but it's the same people. What was that? Was what Malcolm was talking about. Whether you're in, whatever country he named and the other country he named, we all see that the problem is we all have this shared common, this common enemy that we share. We have this common experience that we share. So I can't limit, even for those who don't get it, even for those, and this is one of the reasons I don't deal with people, because I just don't have the patience for it, to limit it and water it down, not in a conversation, but over the next 10 and 20 years of trying to make this connection. If you want to say it's common experience, then yes, we've all had this common experience. The movements and the music and the language, whether you're Gullah, whether you're in Nigeria, it's the same fucking thing. It's all the same thing. So no, we don't understand it because we continue to limit ourselves to our own, what's going on in our house, and trying to say, well, if my house is like this, then Sykes' house must be like that. Ward's house must be like that. And assume that we're either identical in that sense, or we're completely disconnected, not understanding that my limited, only having knowledge of my house, how this Black America thing goes, can't explain what's going on a global level, can't explain the totality of our experience. So no, we don't realize it. Ward, did you get the email?
Yeah, I think.
So if we look at this picture, most of us know who this is or have seen it, da 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 da. It's the Oscar, right? So if you have that other picture, War, it's that award for the best picture and Academy Award winning, da 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 da. This is the statue. Now, slide that other picture. If that was the Oscar that these actors in Hollywood and everybody gets so stomach queasy about, then this next picture, I know most of us ain't gonna recognize. We recognize it, but we don't recognize it. And just for those who don't, that's Ptah. That's a statue of Ptah from Kemetic spiritual science.
Yeah, I don't see that picture.
And I wanted to put this up and point this out because we are surrounded by our own culture all the time. So it's not a matter of getting it. It's not a matter of learning it. It's not a matter of any of these things. It's a matter of accepting it, learning to see it, and then accepting what is right before your eyes. So the going back and learning the history, like, any group of people, well, let me stay on the Black culture, because I can't call it Black culture simply because, well, number one, when we talk about culture, most people are looking at the things. They're looking at the expressions of a culture. Rap music is not the culture. It's an expression of the culture. The way we dress is not the culture. It's an expression of the culture. And that same culture comes from the same people that have this shared thousands and thousands of years of experience. It comes out different here because our experience has been specific, but the culture, the actual culture, what you can't see, feel, hear, taste, or touch, but we know it's there because it comes from us, is the same culture that came from us back then. But the way it was understood, mastered, and expressed reflected a different mindset, a different attitude, a different people. And yeah, I agree 100%. White folk co-opt the expressions of our culture constantly. That's one thing. When they began, because they didn't realize it at first, remember, we jumped the broom because they were attacking the expression of the culture. The expression of the culture, you go down to the chapel or you go to somebody, some official, and they do a particular ceremony. So you couldn't do that. You're barred from doing that. So we decided to jump the broom. That was an expression of our culture. Our culture is to resist through creation. That's how we resist. Naturally, we always have. That's how we've expressed ourselves, is through creation. We are creative people. What Brother David say, we're builders, we're creators. That's what we do all the time, whatever our situation is. So that same building nature, that same building culture that existed in Kemet when the pyramids were being built is the same culture that exists here in us right now. The expressions were co-opted so that that same expression, that same, we have discussion about Malcolm X or Ma'at or, Ptah or whatever, that same desire to create is now taught to create using tools and expressions that are about our destruction. They haven't taken away the culture because we create, but we create the worst shit possible. We create garbage music now because we don't have our faculties. We create women who think that they are actually bringing something to the table by shaking their ass and their tits hanging out. We create the mindset that has sisters getting BBL. We create brothers who don't who refuse to step into manhood. We're doing the same shit. That's why what's his name? Colleague would talk about how we would out Christian the Christians. Why? Because we're going to create new ways to express that idea of Jesus and all the things that go along with it. That's what we do. What it is we're doing, the expression is completely counter to our reality and is self-destructive. So it's not that they co-opted the culture. They can't co-opt the culture. They can co-opt the expressions so that those expressions turn the culture in on us and destroy us. But the culture is still there because we're still creators.
I think, and we're going off base a little bit, but I think you see what I'm saying, E. But I think you kind of went off a little bit, and I'm gonna tell you why I say that. I'm gonna tell you why I say that.
You
And
know, that's always a possibility.
what I'm saying is, I see your point. I directly, yes, they steal a lot of our stuff, but that ain't what I'm saying. I'm saying when you do the vocab rehab on this definition that Kurt Harrod gave, it's more than them co-opting the culture. It's the beauty of sociology. When I like social sciences probably more than anything else because I like to study human behavior, human responses, and things like that. And one of the things that you learn is that there are ways to determine what is going to happen, or at least come up with a good approximation of what might happen, so that you can already plan for it. So now you have developed a proper response instead of a reaction. You don't know what's going to happen. You react to it when it happens. Example: we're working in my professional life. We're working on an account that we done went and we dug the last 3 years of data of this account moving from the company. And one of the things that we found in the next coming months, and it's about a 3 month period, that this account ships more product. So we can reasonably come to the conclusion that since it happens around the exact same time for the last 3 years, that is this account's busy season. That the demand for this product is going to go up in the next 2 weeks. So by looking at the labor that is required to get that type of work out, we can already be training the labor, developing the staff, and be prepared when that happens. When that happens, that usually happens in the middle of May. When that happens, we're ready. We're ready to take off instead of being like a person reacting. Don't haven't looked in the data, hasn't considered what could happen, just sitting back comfortable and then get hit with something that you're not ready for. I use that example because I'm saying that has been done to us through the way cultures develop. Culture is not naturally in you when you're born. Culture happens because culture refers to the behaviors, beliefs, and adaptive mechanisms that a group of people sharing a common experience have constructed to cope with their environment. So I'm 100% in agreement with you, E, but I'm saying that I don't think that you agreeing with me. I think you need to come to this side too, because this side exists. Yes, we should go back to our origin. That's when we find out who we were, how we dealt with things, how we responded, how our natural proclivities to deal with our environment were. Yes, no doubt about it. You're right. What I think that you're not seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that because of the definition of culture, we have constructed new mechanisms to cope with our environment because the environment and what we experienced was brand new to us. This thing that you call this short time is a part of the very thing that influenced the culture that we've created, this nigger culture. And I'm saying that the enemy knew that that would take place, or they put things in the way. You're driving, boom, the road that you usually go is blocked. You have to detour. That is blocked. You have to detour again. They're guiding you in the direction that they want you to go. And I'm saying that now we have been guided along that path. That's what I'm saying. And we have to figure a way out of this in order to get back to that. You're saying that even though we're on this road, we have to go back to who we are. Problem is, we haven't resolved the issue we're dealing with now. And this is why I call it a snake swallowing its own tail, because it has been constructed in a way that even when you say what you're saying, it's like, how in the hell? I'm gonna use another example. Young guy, start hustling, start selling a little dope. By 17 years old, he made him his first 15 grand. Today, that guy that been to prison, he done did all those things. Now that guy works a regular job. Let's say he gets paid 15 bucks an hour. Let's make it that. He gets paid 15 bucks an hour because he once had that 15 or 20 grand in the Nike shoebox under the bed doesn't mean he can pay the bills with that bread today. You know what I'm saying? He can intelligently look back and see what he did to develop that level of finances, but he has to look at his situation that he's in now, figure out how he got in it, and then figure a path out of it. I'm saying that when y'all listen to this definition of culture and really think about what these words mean, that the experience that we have went through has developed a new culture that is antithetical to what you're saying, E. I'm saying culture refers to the behaviors, beliefs, and adaptive mechanism. An adaptive mechanism is something that you apply in order to adapt to a situation that's trying to kill you, that's trying to eliminate you, that's trying to hinder you. The adaptive mechanisms that a group of people sharing a common experience, oppression, police murder, slavery, sharing a common experience, have psychologically constructed these thought patterns to cope with the environment. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that we're there, and I'm saying that enemy knew we would get there. And what we're trying to talk about is not no longer that we're here, but how do we get out of it? How do we solve it? How do we build toward climbing our way out of this situation? That's what I'm getting at.
But it's the same thing. What I said is exactly how we get out of it. We've talked about it before. You know, you described it now about the circle with the snake eating itself. I think the way I like to put it is the problem is the ego, because the ego refuses to acknowledge the problem. The ego has to survive, and the only way the ego survives is to bat down the reality. It doesn't want you to see reality, but it's the mechanism that you're supposed to, that the only mechanism you have to see reality. So until you see reality, you can't realize it's reality, but you got to see it before you realize it. In order for us to get from where we are, we have to understand how we got here. The prerequisite to that is understanding where we came from. If I just start digging myself out of here, how the hell do I know I'm out of here? Huey and them didn't know they were out of there because they didn't study and understand who it is we are, where we came from. They were out of it. They weren't, the survival programs weren't survival. They were freedom. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But we can't see that because we refuse to look back at it and see what culture actually is. And I would disagree with the concept that culture is an external force. It's not. It can't possibly be. Because if we have nigger culture now, we've always had nigger culture. The importance of melanin is that Europeans would have responded or reacted in a different way than we've responded and reacted over the years. Because there is a culture of self. Because there is physically, and you of all people know that, at least amongst us. Are y'all still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Y'all look like y'all froze. Y'all both would just stop. But the culture, and this is
that's what it looks like when you're actually paying attention instead of doing something else while we're talking.
My bad. Melanin. You know, you've talked about it before. White folks coming up out of the background that they came out of, they reacted in a particular way. We reacted in a particular way, not only because the environment, what does the Bible say? We come into the world a vessel, an empty vessel to be filled with the knowledge of the world. Well, that vessel is input. That vessel determines whether it's a square or whether it's a round vessel or how big or small the vessel is. So there's already data information there. And so when we come out with this melanin in hand, we respond and react to our situations differently than those who don't have that. So there's a culture that we bring into the world that when it sees other, you notice black folks traditionally react to different people, different groups, handicapped folk, Asian folk, white folk, folk from another. Generally speaking, we welcome them in. In fact, one of those shorts that I made has Khaled in there, and it has the words, "The guest was the king," because that is that's something that comes from us. Our attitude when we're in our right state of mind is that if I have folk coming over, especially family coming over to the house, they're king. We treat them as valued, honored, not because they're a king, not because they sit on a throne, but because they're family, and we honor them and place them in a certain position because that's how we do. White folks don't do that. The culture comes from within the people. That's why it can never be removed. That's why it can never be had. The embellishments, the expressions can be manipulated into nigger shit. Taking that same, you can't have nigger shit because nigger starts with black. Ain't no white niggas. Niggas was for us. That's what they gave us. So all niggas are black. So nigger culture came out of our shared experience, but it was built on, because what was before the nigger? Black. It was built on the African. It was built on our culture, and it was manipulated. And we were allowed to do certain things and act a certain way. And as they gained more control over a period of time, they manipulated it harder. They were learning the whole time. Yes, they have a direction they wanted to go, which is why our expression, still our own blackness, still our own desire to be and to express. But now what it is, we're given rap music, gangster music was given gangster rap was given a platform, while the conscious shit was pressed down. KRS had to do his thing on the low, while NWA got pumped up. They manipulated the expression, not the desire to communicate and the ability to communicate in the way that we do. That's our culture. That's what we was rapping 20,000 years ago. We was doing all this dancing 20,000 years ago. So
that's what I'm saying though, E. That's what I'm getting at.
But making that connection is the way out of that. That's
the ability to when we read this definition, it tells us that a group of people that went through the same experiences have constructed in order to cope with their environment. An enemy can start manipulating the environment and the experience in order to mutate the culture. That's the whole thing I've been saying the whole time. And I'm saying once you recognize that, like you're saying, and that's a whole nother show. We done got it all the way off the case of what we're supposed to be doing. What we're supposed to be doing is giving an answer. And we're going to get critiqued by Dark Side again because we're going down that rabbit hole of talking about the problem. But I disagree 100% with you on this. You say culture comes from inside. Culture is influenced. Oh, matter of fact, I ain't even going to disagree. I can go with you because that's what the definition says. But what comes from inside of you is influenced by what's happening outside. Culture is not just something you're born with. You're not just born. When you study sociology to a large degree, you start to realize that what we call good and bad, what we call moral, what we call ethics, is not just written in stone, and we're not born with this. This is created. Example, I got a partner I grew up with. We grew up in the same environment. We grew up in the same place. Different mothers. Here it is, you walk into a store. You see a now lady. You grab it, put it in your pocket, walk out. Once you get in the car, you pop over now lady, you feeling good, but I got me some candy. You don't even recognize you stole. Your mama reach over and slap the candy out of your hand, pop you upside the head, grab you by the shirt, drag you back in the store, embarrass the hell out of you, make you apologize to the store owner, give the candy back. You don't even get the candy. She pays for it anyway. Y'all walk back out. She goes off on you, and you get a whooping when you go home. And she defines, you don't think you done nothing wrong. You just want some candy. And she tells you, we don't steal. Stealing is the lowest, you're the lowest person on the planet running around stealing. She has just developed your morality. She has just developed an aspect of your code of ethics with that move. This wasn't naturally in you. This was created in you at that moment. This is according to sociology. Same exact situation. Was a similar, not the same exact, but a similar situation. Another guy, E, goes into the store with his mother. Comes out of the store, sit down. His mother pulls stuff out of her bra and pulls stuff out from under her dress. Look what I came up with. What did you get? E said, I ain't get nothing. She pops E upside the head and say, boy, don't you ever miss an opportunity to come up. What's wrong with you? I was distracting this man so that you could pocket some stuff. Don't you ever miss an opportunity to come up. The same level of shame that I felt by getting popped from taking the annihilators is the exact same level of shame that E felt because he didn't take advantage of a situation to get some annihilators. Right then, me and E's code of conduct is starting to be developed. And as adults, me and E is going to respond to a similar situation in completely different ways based on our upbringing, based on our development. This is how sociology breaks this stuff down. This is why I think these social sciences are important to understand. And you have to understand that the whole purpose of sociology as a social science is to study human behavior, human intelligent reaction to behavior, so that you can then automate human behavior. So that, just like I was just saying about that contract that goes into his busy season in a few weeks, you can study this, see it, and then create things to direct it. I'm saying that's what happened to our culture. I'm saying that that's what took place. Even in this book, beautiful book to read, When the World Was Black by Supreme Understanding, Black brother. He talks about, and this is not just black people, this is, you read biology. He talks about haplogroups. I reference him because this is the first place I read about it. And we've seen this. We've seen this. Think about it. When you look at movies or TV or you listening to West Coast rappers, they kind of talk with the same lingo. What's cracking, homie? What's popping, cuz? They talk with the same lingo. Some of these dudes kind of look alike. Look at Nipsey Hussle and Snoop Dogg. These dudes are not family. They kind of look alike. Look at the dudes from the East Coast. Look at the people from different parts of the planet, how they kind of similar. They have the same accent. You'll find people in the East Coast. We've all been to New York. We've all been to Chicago. We've all been to California. You find these different groups of people talking with these accents, and you ask yourself, where is this coming from? It's the environment, and it's the environmental influence on that group of people. People would start to look alike because of haplogroups, meaning that certain DNA structures are in certain parts of the country. And these people who are not even family, but because these DNA structures in this one community, let's say stop 6, because of these particular families, these 5, 6 major families are here in stop 6, and they're all mating with each other, there becomes a distinct look from these people because of the environment. And when you see these people, you almost to a degree be like, he old boy look like he from stop 6. That's called in when we dealing with not paleontology. What's the name of the science? I can't think of the name of it. But when we dealing with that, it's called a haplogroup, a blood group. It's called a haplogroup, a DNA group that makes certain people, groups of people, look alike, even though they're not related as far as it goes to family. And this is what I'm saying is happening with culture. This is what I'm saying that we have to be aware of, because if we're not aware of that, then your solution, E, doesn't work. And this is why. This is why your solution doesn't work. It doesn't work not because it's not a real solution. I'm not saying that. This solution that you're giving is what helped me to start mentally seeing black people as being in control of their lives. Before I had that idea, I didn't even believe we could create a grocery store. I just didn't believe it because I had no reference of that. So I'm not saying that your solution doesn't work, but I'm saying if you want this solution, as you just said, as you defined for the Nation of Islam, to be for all black people, you have to be alert and aware of what I'm saying right now. Because if you're serious about a solution for all black people, if you're serious about that solution, then you have to take into account what's being said, because this is a real thing. This is real. It has happened. It is happening, and it's one of the reasons why even the new Black Panther Party back in the day was fighting over this culture thing. It's the reason. And if you don't identify the reason, you can't properly identify a real solution. This is what I'm trying to get at, and what I'm trying so hard to get us to get across, because we have to come up with a solution that takes what you're telling us, but we need a process. What you're giving us right now is just a goal and not a plan. And I think the plan will come out of recognizing where we at and how we got in this position to get out of it, as you just said. But we keep trying to go over that. And yes, there is no way that culture can come from within us without the things that's acting on us, because the definition again says culture refers to behaviors, beliefs, and adaptive mechanisms that a group of people sharing a common experience have constructed to cope with their environment. So this is real. Whether we like it or not doesn't even matter. This is a real thing, and we done wasted all our time on this. We didn't even get to the power and no solutions, none of that.
I don't know if it was a waste, but we did actually do a show digging into where social science drops off and spiritual science kicks in, because that's still part of our disconnect, is that this is a white guy who, because of Western thinking, because it's where they come from, is that what's external outweighs what's internal. The Bible didn't say.
I don't think that's so. I don't think that's so. I don't think that's what's happening.
Oh,
I don't
absolutely.
even think this is a white guy without a doubt, but I don't even think that this. I don't think we can throw this knowledge away just because a white person said it.
I'm not
I think
saying throw it away.
I think that would be
I'm not
foolish,
saying throw it
because
away.
this is a black guy, and he's saying
we
he's saying the exact same thing. Two different books, two different people.
Okay, whether or not the dude is black or the dude is white, when someone starts telling me that the external influence is the heavier of the two or the only, if it comes from here and saying it's external, that tells me that it's coming from a westernized position, because our positions are going to acknowledge exactly what the Bible is saying: a vessel, a thing, something, not a piece of meat, but what it is you're imbued with that you bring into the world. Because you can take another child and put them if it was all about the external, then no matter who you put in those scenarios, it's always going to turn out the same.
I never said it was all about the external, but I was saying we can't discount the external when we're examining this. I never said it was all about the external. But there are certain things that the external influences.
Your reference.
Let me jump in. Let me jump in real quick. Let me jump in and add my piece. I'm gonna jump in and add my piece.
Who are you?
See, I want to say this. I believe where Psych is going with this is the whole point is we got listeners that are tuning into our show because they want to start focusing on a process that takes you from point A to point Z. Now that my eyes are open and I am ready to learn, I am ready to take the fact that the problem has been pointed out. And I want you to be able to take me into a process, or a what I would say a rites of passage to get from where I am to where I need to be in some capacity. So in talking about where I see Psych dealing with it, and reason why he's bringing it up is he's talking about how you deconstruct in order to reconstruct. We at a point now to where we spent a lot of time on deconstructing what the problem is, but not dealing with the reconstruction of the solution. We can't just simply say this is a solution and then back off and think that this internal awakening is going to happen, because we have been so focused, we have been nullified in terms of being able to have that connection with our ancestors. So now you got to take the fact that what Europeans have done and what society has done is they have weaponized that against ourselves through epigenetics, fear, epigenetic slavery, epigenetic code. They have destroyed our ability to tap into what it is that we can realize and re-internalize through our ancestry. So they have emulated and created ways to make us basically follow suit in terms of someone else's culture. And I want to even say this, and then we'll dive in this when we revisit this and talk about the solutions. But the deal is, you can. I'm just going to give this example, and I give it again. Willie Lynch. The whole point of that is what Europeans have done is they created institutions to counter anybody else's development of institutions. And the only way we can have ability to form our own institutions, and we'll go into this again, is to recognize that they have institutions to stop institutions. So in order for us to be able to get to a point to where we can build our institutions, we need to be able to deconstruct their deconstructing us. And so that requires a process of how to come out of being a nigga. It even goes back to one of the books that y'all constantly hit me on, and that was Know Thyself by Naeem Akbar. That's exactly what he's doing in that book. He's breaking down what has been done to us so that and deconstructing what has been done to us so that we can take that and rebuild and repair the things that have been done to us so that we don't continually allow the perpetual deconstruction or should I say de-evolution, the perpetual de-evolution process to continue forward. Because what we do when we don't know we're wrong and we don't know how not to be wrong, we will pass on that same thing to the next generation. And that's what Willie Lynch is all about. It is passing on these dysfunctionalities from one generation to the next to the point to where the dysfunctionalities are so ingrained in you that you don't know how not to stop acting being a nigga. Someone can point it out and say, hey, this is how niggas act. And they can talk about you all day long. So I can see the problem. But I don't know how not to be a nigga. So you need to provide me a process, a deconstruct process of how not to be that nigga. And as you do that, that will take me through a rites of passage that will get me back in line with being able to have a proper formal connection with my ancestral heritage that will take me past the shores of the United States. And that's what people are wanting to hear. So that process is where we have to start.
You've been saying that for years, bro. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah.
Well, I think what he's saying is now we got to create the process. We have to develop step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And it's hard to do that because what's happening right now, even between me and E right now, is what has happened historically to us and our movements. This has historically happened. We have our own ideas about how this is supposed to work. I'm a believer that like I just said, we have to. For a long time, I discounted a lot of things because white folks said it. When I was on hiatus, the only time I could read black books is when I ordered them, and a lot of times they was denied. So, but I was able, and it actually ended up being a benefit to me, I believe, because I was able to dig into some of those sciences that I hadn't been touching, and some of those things are important to understand. I truly believe that, and if we, as in the Art of War, Sun Tzu says that we have to know the enemy situation. He said, how do you know the enemy situation? He said, can you base it off what always happened? Can you base it off the history? And we can to a degree. You know, good, intelligent boxers sit back and watch the footage of the fighters they about to fight. They try to learn where they're weak at. You know, they're trying to learn where they're strong at. They try to learn, they try to figure things out. One of the things that they found about Tyson is that he wasn't used to going the limit. He was strong, he was powerful, he hit hard, he was a monster. And he was eliminating his opponents in the first few minutes of the round. So they came up with a strategy. We may need to make him go the distance in order to defeat him. And that's how they first started getting defeats on Tyson. Even Muhammad Ali's strategy for dealing with George Foreman was the same thing. He studied the footage, and as terrible as a champion, as powerful his punch was, Muhammad Ali came to the conclusion that this guy doesn't have win. I need to make him go the distance. So what I'm getting at is we have to scientifically dissect the problem, the situation, and we ain't got to do it for the people because our social scientists, our political theoreticians have to do this. Our political theory, that's why it says that a revolutionary is, one of the things that a revolutionary must be is a political theoretician. And he now has to be this because he has to understand that the people are more developed socially than they are politically. So the political theoretician has to break down complex political ideas and make them digestible for the average person. So we have to look at this thing for what it is, break it down and understand what it took us where we've been taken to. That's why when I look at culture and understand how culture is developed, when you understand that and really look at it, I step back and I'm like, wow. Then if I influence the environment and the situation that a particular group of people are going through, I actually have the ability to influence the culture that people that's coming from out of the people, as he said, because there is something inside of a group of people that naturally responds. Right now, you don't realize it, but right now, you have 11.7 pounds of atmospheric pressure on your head right now. Right now, everybody listening to this, the atmosphere itself weighs 11.7 pounds. If you ever seen I think it's John Carter, Mars, it's a movie that came out years ago. If you ever seen it, John Carter came from Earth. He landed on Mars. But on Mars, he was stronger than the average person. He could jump, almost fly. And the reason for that is the difference between the atmospheric pressure on Mars and the atmospheric pressure on the planet. The human being here on planet Earth has exactly 11.7 pounds of corresponding pressure pushing out from his body to relieve the 11.7 pounds of atmospheric pressure. So there is something inside of you that naturally responds to what's going on outside of you. And when the environment outside of you changes, what's inside of you responds differently, like in the John Carter movie. I'm saying that when we really start to recognize and understand that, we also start to understand that there are people that understand that and that they have created things outside of us to make the things inside of us respond in a certain way that's to their benefit and not to ours. This is what I'm getting at. And I think that being able to identify that phenomenon is the starting point for starting to develop a true plan for escaping that phenomenon. That's all I'm getting at. That's all I'm saying. And it takes us to start researching different studies. Because before I went on hiatus, I was deep into the African Center study. I was deep. And I remember me and E having a conversation. It's like we're reading the same books. They're all saying the same thing. Because those books was only directed toward letting us know who we used to be and how we got into the situation we're in now. When we start studying the social sciences, we can start developing skills and techniques for guiding our people out of this situation. And again, all of this first parts of the stuff doesn't even need to have to be given to the people. That's why the revolutionary, again, is the political theoretician. But the people need real answers. Malcolm X once said, he said that you have to, he said, I realized that the problem with the movement is that we have been trying to move a sleeping people. You cannot move a sleeping people. He said the first thing you have to do is you have to wake them up. And they said, how do you wake them up? By letting them know what's wrong? He said, we already know what's wrong. We've been going through this hell for over 400 years. We know what the problem is. He said, you have to wake them up with a vision of who they are. You have to take them back to who they are and then start moving them in that direction. In the Bible, he quoted the Bible a few minutes ago. I think it was Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. It says that my people die, my people perish from a lack. We always say a lack of knowledge, but the true interpretation would have been a lack of vision. There has to be a direction in which we know that we need to go. Or if we look at things like I think it was what scripture is this? I can't remember. Man, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's in my head, but it's not coming to light for me. But there is a man, I can't think of the scripture. It'll come to my mind in a minute. I'm going to get off that and stop wasting our time. But it gives a pathway to the Valley of the Dry Bones. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but in the Valley of the Dry Bones, it says that that God takes the prophet. I think it was, I can't remember what prophet it was, but I think it was Jeremiah maybe. But he takes the prophet and he takes him to look at this valley. And he asked him, he said, look down in that valley. There's a whole bunch of dry bones in the valley. Dead people. They all in the valley. And God asked him, can these bones live? And then the prophet told God, man, you God. I don't know. Can they? And then God said, basically, you got to go down there and you have to prophesy to them. He gives him a step by step process in order to make the bones pull themselves out of the dirt. And at the end of the process, he said, and then they will become an exceedingly great nation. And I think that's the situation we are in. That we're in the valley of the dry bones. But we have to create the process. And then we have to prophesy to those bones in order for them to pull themselves out of the dirt. And prophecy is about giving a person a vision of the future.
And let me say this, and this even goes before we have a fully intact operational structure as we do what we do, Panther 48, in terms of building our stuff. We also can teach the people, because right now what we're talking about is this, talking on the practice and just putting it all together in terms of how it's presented to the people. So it's not a matter of just saying, well, this is what I've been talking about that we need to do. Well, also, let's tell the people what we need to do. Because from that same standpoint, we can go back to how we continually talk about our membership manual. But if we're not providing the people those blueprints and telling the people and teaching people the same lessons we were teaching each other, then all we're doing is still regurgitating the concept that these are the problems, these are the problems, these are the problems. Folks now ready to start following a process.
Well, today
That's it.
was our discussion. We didn't go into any of the solution. We went into the I guess analyzing the problem and I guess kind of beating on some of the solution without blueprinting. That's what we're gonna have to get better at. We're gonna have to get better at really blueprinting this thing out. Cause we got to remember that everybody's not at the same level of revolutionary development. Period. Point blank. Uh, we're probably not there because if we was, we'd be able to blueprint a whole lot easier. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I think that we have to be aware of, and we have to challenge ourselves to really sit down and blueprint this thing out and lay this thing out, uh, so that we can actually get some workable, practical solution. When I first came home, one of the things I told y'all is there were two words that I learned, and they became my favorite words in the English dictionary: practical and pragmatic. I like those words, and I still feel the same way because if I can't apply it, then it means absolutely nothing to me. If it doesn't apply to my situation, then what's the point? And you got to understand that that's the way the average person thinks. A-Ball said, uh, some dread said, I try to listen because A-Ball ain't the one to knock it, but I can't hear him from the echo from my empty pockets. And even, I think it was Bobby Seale that said this, that said that it's not good enough for us to have, now it was Huey that said it, it's not good enough for us to have a correct analysis of the situation if it could be the right or not, it could be what we need, period. It could be exactly what we need, it could be the answer. But if the people doesn't understand it as the answer, then it's useless. It's not, it's kind of revolutionary. It has to be not only a correct analysis of the situation, but it has to reach the people where they're at, meaning that it has to solve a real problem that the people recognize as a problem in order to get them on board with your plan. And I'm another believer that I don't think anything, I think that's why I kind of argued for the Nation of Islam as being a true black institution, even though it doesn't serve the mass majority of black people. I think it was designed to. I think what Elijah Muhammad was trying to come up with was, okay, that thing you're in over there doesn't work. Come over here to this thing and come out of the rain. We're dry in here. We're having a ball in here. Come out of the rain, and we'll be safe in this nation. And I think that was his ideal of shooting toward a solution. And when you realize that, then you realize that he tried to solve or tried to solve the greater black problem with a system that led black people out of there. He even had a plan not only for a nation theoretically, but he even had a physical plan. He wanted America. If black people are your problem, then give us certain states and let us completely leave you and figure this thing out on our own. That was his answer to that. And he even went and had meetings with other quote unquote racist organizations and white people who wanted black people out. And I would say the reason he did that is because he felt that if he got them on board with him, then they could start together appealing to the United States government. One of the things that I think that he failed to think about at that time, and I don't know Elijah Muhammad's mind or even pretend that I'm as wise as the brother was, but no nation gives up land because land is the only thing on the planet they're not making any more of. Land is the most valuable thing on the planet Earth because every other thing that you have come from the land. So no nation will give up land, especially Europeans whose entire sojourn on this planet is about confiscating as much land as possible to secure their position. So that is something that I think was not going to happen. And then from a military tactical point of view, to have a a a hostile nation right next to you by giving them these southern states would almost be insane. It's why they put out the trade embargoes on Cuba, is to keep Cuba economically weak because Cuba is way too close to America and not a friendly nation with America. It's strategically not sound to allow that nation to flourish, to allow that nation to gain power, because if it does, think about it. That nation could say, China, y'all can come put some nuclear weapons over here. Iran, we cool with y'all. Come on, you can put nuclear weapons in Cuba on Cuban soil. Think about how damaging and damning that would be to America. So these are the things I think when we're looking for solutions, we have to dig into this and research it on this level to understand what we're looking at and what we're really dealing with. But without a shadow of a doubt, and just for Dart, we have to analyze these ideas today, Dart. And we did give you a solution. And we've been building on this solution. And one solution, not the solution, one step is, in order to get free and to move toward having power, institutions have to be built in the community. That's just a reality. One of the best ones to look at, to examine, and he is right on this, it did not solve the black problem. A nice shot at it, but it did not solve the black problem, the Nation of Islam. Go ahead, E. I see you got something on your mind.
Now, I didn't know we were still actually going to use all of this.
Oh, we went off the rails.
Yeah. Not that it's not good for some shorts and whatnot, but I thought we had started to veer into, we talked about people need a process. People need a process. The people need a process. The people need a process. Like, that's what I thought we were going into.
I'm gonna give y'all something that I wrote in the Uhuru Shule. In the Uhuru Shule, there's a lesson called the Science of Manhood. And in that lesson, it builds on 5 human drives. There are 5 things that drive the human being to just move, that influences the human being to get up every day. And I'm not going to go into all those 5 things, but one of those things that drive the human being is power. And I'm gonna give you the definition, because that's what we're building on, is power. And the definition given in the Uhuru Shule is this. It says power. Power is the ability to bring about a result in one's environment. As Huey P. Newton once said, power is the ability to define phenomenon. Phenomenon is an observable act or an event, an object or aspect known through the senses. Opposite is a noumenon, which is apprehended by thought only. So a phenomenon is something that I can identify with my ability to smell, see, touch, taste, and hear. So he said, power is the ability to define phenomenon and cause phenomenon to act in a desired fashion. Without this ability, a man can never truly survive or feel safe. History has proven to us that those with power will take from those who have less power than they do. Those without power are forever at the mercy of those with power. The moment that the powerful decide that you no longer deserve to exist, you will die. A few quotes to prove this point follows. In Barack Obama's Dreams from My Father, he quotes his stepfather Lolo as saying, Men take advantage of weakness. Men take advantage of weakness in other men. They're like countries in that way. The strong man takes the weak man's land. He makes the weak man work in his fields. If the weak man's wife is pretty, the strong man will take her. Better to be strong. If you can't be strong, be clever and make peace with a strong man. But always better to be strong yourself. Robert Greene quotes a debate between Athens and Milos in the 48 Laws of Power. You know as well as we do that the standard of justice depends on the equality of power to compel. In fact, the strong do what they have the power to do, and the weak accept what they must. One of the attributes that man applies to God is omnipotent, which means all powerful. It does not take a lot of intelligence to see that the more power that you acquire and use wisely, the closer you get to this attribute of God. When a man is unable to become erect, he is called impotent. The word means without power. He is unable to have sex and produce children, so he has lost his ability to cause an effect. Power is a very important attribute of a man.
There you go.